Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Gut Reset Summit. I'm your host, Dr. John Dempster, and today I am joined with Sinclair Kennelly. Now, you are probably very familiar with Sinclair, but if you're not, Sinclair is affectionately called the Liver Lady, and she is the Chief Talking Officer at Detox Rejuvenation. Sinclair stands out in her philosophy in the way she tackles root causes and toxic exposures, as it's not just about the physical body. We are bioelectrical beings with a very complex nervous system. As a CNC and certified toxicity and detox specialist, she relies heavily on emerging data in the rapidly evolving field of new health. And as a survivor of complex chronic illness and serious trauma herself, she's able to support her clients throughout their journeys with a deep shared understanding and total joy in their triumphs. So, Sinclair, that's amazing. I'm very excited to have you on the Gut Reset Summit today. And I know we're going to dive deep into the gut liver axis, but first of all, welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure to be here. Can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, we've all got a story, and I know we've kind of alluded to yours. How did you get into this? How did you end up being such an expert in gut and liver access?
Oh, the short answer is the hard way. So I thought I was living my dream as a mental health specialist. I was helping with somatic trauma release, and I thought it was all about trauma when it came to chronic conditions and persistent health issues. And while it is certainly an essential layer for us to understand, especially in this day and age, there's really so much more to the story. And I discovered that because my health went from being finicky. I was sensitive, chemically sensitive, food sensitive to, my foods reducing down to just 3 foods I could tolerate without severe reactions. And I finally ended up in the hospital with what we thought was a heart attack. And my body just seemed to be completely shutting down. And I remember the hospitalists kind of getting excited when they saw me, which is weird. Like, oh, we've got a live one. Let's figure this one out. And then scan after scan, test after test, nothing really revealed itself as my core issues that could be quickly resolved. There were no surgeries to do. There was, nothing dramatic to right the ship. And they started to avoid me. And I had no insurance at the time, so I actually walked out of the hospital without even checking out. Nobody stopped me. I was still in my hospital gown. I thought I was going home to die.
Oh my gosh.
And I wish I could say it was like one quick aha moment from there, but it was really 8 years of trial and error after that. And it was quite the journey. And yeah, it really centered around digestive issues. And, I did have chronic Lyme that went undiagnosed for decades. I also had, Hashimoto's, fibromyalgia, mold poisoning, heavy metals, but there wasn't anything unusual about my story. I think it actually reflects so much of what people are going through when you look at like 61% of Americans having chronic digestive issues today. So many of us suffer for so long and wait to finally get bad enough to get a diagnosis. And there's a big in between time, where we're searching for answers. And that was me.
Well, I'm glad you're still here with us. And, obviously you've got a tremendous story, and that's quite the medical resume, as we say, with a lot of our patients. But yet that's what's going to make you such a powerful healer and therapist, and, wisdom is going to exude from you, I'm sure, with every time you speak. But today, I know we're very excited to talk about this gut liver axis. What is that? What is this all about?
Yeah. So we think about, like, we say access when we mean like a deep relationship, right? That's all we're talking about here is there's a very intimate, crucial relationship between liver health and gut performance. And, we talk a lot as, in the digestive expert world, it's like, oh, it's this tube and it starts in the mouth, blah, blah, blah. But in this day and age, it's actually very easy to get an overloaded liver. And if you do, if your gallbladder is even a little inflamed, if your bile is even a little bit sluggish, then you're not using bile as that essential additional piece to your digestive health. Like that bile has got to come in and meet that bolus of food and that stomach acid right as it enters the small intestine, just as the pancreatic enzymes do. And that sodium bicarbonate, it's an essential part. It's actually a trifecta. So the stomach acid starts to modulate down if bile flow can't move with ease. And that means that we can't keep up with pathogens coming in that should die off in the stomach. We can't break down our food appropriately. And bile is such a magical material. I know it sounds like a gross word, guys, but I just get over it. This is how I became a liver lady, because as soon as I realized the importance of bile flow, that's when my health picture really started to change. So bile is made in the liver, right? And I call it the liquid gold detergent because it's expensive for the body to make and the body wants to reuse it. But it really is there to help break down and emulsify fats, just as like your degreaser does when you're washing a pan. And it also helps to assimilate, fat soluble vitamins that we have to have for things like bone health, A, D, E, K, also calcium. So I hope you're listening closely if you also have gut issues and osteoporosis or osteopenia. And basically that bile really kicks off a beautiful process where you can finally absorb your fats via the lacteals and lymphatics deep in the small intestine. But that can't happen if your bile isn't entering the gut efficiently, the small intestine efficiently. And why would that be? Why would that even be a problem? If the liver's making it and the liver's very efficient, it's kind of our master regenerative organ, right? It can rebuild itself in 6 weeks. Like this thing is a beast. It's holding 13% of our body's blood at any given time. Why would it be having any trouble with this? Because we have 2,000 miles of bile ducts within just the liver itself. And those can become sticky, viscous, sluggish in their flow if they get into contact with things like synthetic chemicals, industrial chemicals, heavy metals, mold. All of these feel like normal things, although we certainly normalize them in our modern life. And it doesn't take that much for bile salts that are suspended in liquid with very delicate chemistry to just drop out of that liquid form and start to slow down again. And bile salts are formed from cholesterol components and amino acids. And so it's actually very complex chemistry. It's expensive for the body to make. So if it slows down even a little bit, the liver may not have what it needs to speed back up again, to offload the old junk to catch up. And the gallbladder may not be in a position to let go of sluggish material. And that affects everything in your digestive tract. So this is why a lot of those liver congestion signs are actually digestive issues, like nausea, like GERD or acid reflux, like constipation or diarrhea, like bloating and indigestion. SIBO, SIFO, these things can flourish in a low bile flow environment. So we really want to understand this intimate relationship between the liver and the gut.
I'm glad you touched on those symptoms. Like, are there any other really sneaky symptoms that can really allude to a liver problem or possibly a gallbladder, like signs and symptoms that people can see? For example, I know skin is one of those areas. Anything else?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you bring up a great point. Skin is a great example of so it could be a dermatitis, just a little bit of rashy then now and then, a little bit of flushing, or something more pronounced like rosacea that's persistent, or eczema, or even psoriasis, things that we now attribute to like, oh, that's an autoimmune condition, right? But they can actually stem from the liver being overloaded, and they can actually resolve permanently if you do the work of reclaiming your liver health and your gallbladder health, if you still have one. And that must be said because, one of the big signs and symptoms that your liver is overloaded is gallbladder issues. So you might get, and this is a very specific word, if you've ever had it, you'll know what I mean. You get a pinging. It's very specific location, your upper right quadrant, if you eat too much fat at dinner. And it's like very localized, maybe in this large of an area, and it feels sharp. That pinging is probably your gallbladder trying to let go of bile and to help out to emulsify those fats and not being in a position to, and getting really inflamed. So that can lead to developing things that are more pronounced, like gallbladder attacks. And if you've ever had one, women who have given birth say this is worse than childbirth. Like or on par with it. It's very scary for them. It can come out of nowhere seemingly. And so you can end up in the ER and you can get told that the logical course of action is to remove that. So that is absolutely a sign of an overloaded liver because your gallbladder is in deep relationship to the liver. It serves as the catcher's mitt for the bile, right? And it's supposed to be releasing that very strategically. It's also supposed to be condensing bile, modulating the pH, changing some of the anti-cancer properties about it so that it's always talking with the rest of the digestive tract, but that can't happen if you don't have one. So that's a big one as well. And what else? Obviously things like a lot of people think that belly fat that we have with, especially, as you get into middle age, we call that cortisol belly now because people are more hormone literate, which is great. That can also just be liver and gallbladder issues. So that excess weight obviously the difficulty digesting fats. Another one is difficulty sleeping. So if you have trouble getting to sleep, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, typically around 3 a.m., that can absolutely be a sign of overloaded liver. And then there's the temperament stuff. People who are overloaded with their liver tend to be quick to overwhelm, quick to irritation, impatient, brain foggy, because you're not draining well. So since the brain drains last, I know we want to talk about that today, then you're going to have some issues with mental clarity when you have an overloaded liver.
Basically everything, right? We've got some.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about food sensitivities or PMS, reproductive issues, things like that.
Well, I'm sure you've seen over the years working with your clients, as I have, it's like, and these are elderly clients at this point, but in the past, that gallbladder, if they were ever doing any form of any other surgery, they were taking it out electively at the time, saying, oh, this is just going to give you problems down the road. You might as well get it out now. And I think at this point now, we're all realizing that wasn't a good idea. Now, absolutely, if somebody's got a severe attack and, it's life-threatening, yes, there's a time and a place for that procedure, but not electively.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I really appreciate you saying that. This is something that we want to do our best to support for optimal digestion, and as well as everything that the liver does, the gallbladder really aids in. So if the liver is one of our major anti-aging tools, then we really want to keep the gallbladder on board as much as we can.
What do you see some of the biggest toxins? Like where, I think we can all think of pesticides, herbicides, but what are some of the real specific ones that you see come up over and over and over again as probable factors here?
Actually, I would put mold at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is from water damaged buildings, and it really isn't any specific family of molds. We think about black mold. Some people are educated about that, like, oh, that's black mold, that's going to be a problem, versus like green mold. And that's not necessarily the case. The lesser molds that can be found, contaminating grains or in your drywall, like Aspergillus, Penicillium. It's not just Fusarium and Stachybotrys, which are considered the black molds. These can be really damaging to your digestive health over time because they're so good at slowing down the liver. And mold's job is really to decompose. That's what it's there for. So it actually feeds on your cells and decomposes your cells and spits out mycotoxins. That's its poison, to elbow other microbes out of the way, right? And also to suppress your immune system so that it can flourish. So mold is like parasites, really, in a very real functional way, because it's quorum sensing. It's a colonizer that communicates within the colony, figures out how that colony needs to thrive, and it will adjust and adapt to the environment. So it is absolutely the top toxin I would put on the list for, lowering liver productivity and really compromising your digestion over time. And then after that, do you want to add anything about that before I add any others?
Well, no, you go on. I'm not going to interrupt you. When you're giving us these pearls, I'm letting you go. You go.
So then we have herbicides, right? Like glyphosate, we now understand is very problematic. That's basically instant leaky gut on contact. And that's in 75% of our air and water samples throughout the United States. Like, it's in the hydration cycle, guys. It's not just about, did I buy conventional food today or organic food? Organic food helps, and it will lower your glyphosate levels for sure, but it doesn't mean that you're living a glyphosate-free lifestyle, because it's now in the tap water. And it's now, like, anytime you're walking your dog along a golf course or your kids are playing on a soccer field, this is going to be an exposure you have to think about. So if we're in a world where glyphosate is creating leaky gut, it's also creating leaky organ barriers everywhere else. So that's leaky brain. It's also leaky liver. So the liver blood barrier actually does leak, and that's a really big problem. You want a little bit of bile to come into the bloodstream, just a tiny bit, but you don't want anything else to. And so this becomes very problematic, because then you get not just intrahepatic recirculation of toxins, but then the whole detox and drainage system gets interrupted and wonky. So that's a big one. Go ahead.
No, that's massive. And thank you for bringing it up, because again, a lot of us are eating organically, and we're really trying to be, purposeful with avoiding glyphosate and any of those products, but it is in the air we breathe. It's in the water we drink, unless we're really, really living in a bubble. And that's very hard to do.
Yeah, and don't despair, guys. Like this is all fixable. It's fixable right now. So we will cover that in this interview. We will not leave you hanging.
No, and that's where I'm really excited to get into this with you, because most people, when they come to us, they are, like many of your clients, very sick from this toxic burden, and they want to know, how do they begin? And most of them tried things on their own. They put themselves on, the detox of the week, and they felt really bad. So how do you approach this? We hear a lot about this drainage. Now, I know that's going to be part of what we talk about, but how would you approach cleaning somebody that's been exposed to mold, Monsanto products, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and of course, guys, we're talking about, like, when we say toxins, we mean environmental toxicants. There's over 100,000 that are approved for use in the United States right now. It doesn't even count the secondary toxins that get made when two, substances form a new substance, like aluminum from air pollution or aluminum from your deodorant and glyphosate, form together to make, wait for it, aluminum glyphosate, which has a whole different set of rules to what it can do to damage the body. So this is a big, broad umbrella conversation we're having about this. So we need to come at it knowing that we've been exposed to many different things, hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of environmental toxicants over our lifetimes. What are some broad range strategies that we can use to support the body, given that we're just living in an unprecedented time? Our bodies didn't evolve with these things, but they do still have great strategies. Body's still brilliant. It just needs some strategic help at this time, So that's why we like really broad range strategies, because yes, we can run labs on what you've been exposed to. I love those toxin labs. They're very revealing, but at the same time, there's no way we could test you for everything. Some studies show that an adult will have about 20,000 different toxic substances in the body. So what can we do for all of those, right? And there's a few different buckets of things. And one of them is to support you with drainage first. Drainage just means strategies to support the body in doing what it already wants to do. It's just not in a position to do it on its own at peak efficiency right now. You're always draining. You're always detoxing. Otherwise, you'd be dead. Let's just be clear about that. And when we say drainage, what we're referring to is supporting excretion, supporting release. That's our emunctories, our drainage organs. And that is really starting from the bottom up. So that's your colon, obviously, is a drainage organ. So we don't want to flush a clogged toilet, which is why we always start with dealing with the colon first and making sure you're pooping. And for so many people, that's not the case yet. So you need to be moving your bowels at least once a day. Otherwise, you are not allowed to push detox. That's the rule. We're talking about safety first. Think about trying to flush a clogged toilet. It's going to overflow. You're going to get unnecessary symptoms. A lot of cleanup to do that didn't have to be there if you just worked on unplugging the toilet first. That's what we do, making sure the bowels move. So that's step number one with drainage always. And you might need a little bit of energy help in order to even get to that. So it's not just about like, what's the laxative I'm using? It might also be that the mitochondria are so dysfunctional from, these environmental toxicants that they also need a little bit of support along the way in order to support opening of drainage pathways. So that's something to consider as well. So the colon, and then the next layer that we really focus on is like gut motility, which means liver support and a little bit of kidney protection, because the kidneys are not as resilient as the liver is. And the liver knows that. The liver is always sorting which toxins need to go out through the bile, which is through your bowels, or through the kidneys, because they're water soluble. So we want to support that intelligence with some liver support, there's an intelligence to this, guys. There's a lot of liver support products on the market. And I'm not a fan of many of them because they're not taking into account how they might, mobilize toxins before the body's ready to deal with them. So we want to think systemically about this always with drainage. So drainage is not about pushing detox. It's about opening the pathways for detox. So we want to give the liver key nutrients it needs to function well, just in general, without being like, here's a glutathione IV. Mm-hmm. Oops, you're not ready for that yet? Okay. Sorry, crashed you. Mm-hmm. That's a great example, And then from there, once we've got a little bit of liver support on board and the body's tolerating it, so that means bile builders and bile movers. Those are two different things. Bile movers are things like bitters. Bile builders are things like TEDCA, phosphatidylcholine, things that actually build the bile itself so you can build more faster and move out the old stuff with greater ease. Then you could start working on lymphatic drainage and support. And a lot of people really love the lymphatics right now. And that's so great that we're getting more intelligence about that. Just want to remind you that if you push lymph that's been stuck for quite some time, where is that lymph going to go? It's going to dump toxins and waste and pathogens into the bloodstream. And if the liver can't keep up, then you're doing your drainage out of order and you're going to get some symptoms that weren't necessary to experience. So
which
that's
is
the
called,
basic.
which is called the Herx, right? The Herx reaction.
Ding, 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 right?
And a lot of us, I think we've been taught that the Herx is to be expected and that it's normal. But from what I'm hearing from you and many others right now is that we shouldn't have to be feeling this way. We should be able to clean our bodies without getting thrown on our backside and, not being able to go to work and show up for our family. We should be able to do this in a way that doesn't just blow the dam wide open so that everything just floods out beneath us. We've got to do that, get the drainage going and so forth, as you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's really beautifully said. We had a woman come to us for colitis and lymphoma, and she was so backed up in her drainage systems that she couldn't drink water without excreting blood and mucus. And she was scared, and she could not perform her work. She was an artist and she couldn't do her work. So the issue that we get into when we wait and we develop these really chronic conditions and that are become quite acute in nature is that it can be really tempting to go after the scariest part of this. But if we actually look at what the body is asking for, it's really looking for drainage support, like colitis, lymphoma. These are two big signs of warning signs in drainage systems right there. And she actually had serious issues where her liver had shut down. So we weren't able to get to liver support until we had soothed the gut, settled everything down, gotten the colon working again. And then we were able to slowly unpack that congestion in the liver. And she actually got out thousands and thousands and thousands of stones. They would just volunteer in the toilet with things like TUDCA bile salts and, bitters and these supportive products. She didn't even need to get to things like a liver flush, which we teach people how to do, but she didn't need one for quite some time because the liver was just like, oh, finally, I'm getting what I need to let go. And she had been exposed to mold as a child, and she was also living in mold unbeknownst to her. So it was just the body saying, oh my gosh, I'm trying to drain and I can't. And we get these big, scary words attached to that. And I totally understand because I had big, scary words attached to me too. I went through a lot of misdiagnoses. But the truth is the body has great systems and strategies. We just need to figure out where does it need that support and work with the body.
Yeah, no better said than that. We can heal, we can recover, we are strong, we're resilient, but you've got to give yourself a chance. And if you don't do that, we're going to be spinning that hamster wheel, as they say. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about an area that you're really fond of. And again, we're going to get into the weeds here. But, enemas, flushes, detoxes, what's the difference between, or how can we break those down? Enemas, I think, are pretty clear. Walk us through that a bit.
Yeah. And this is very funny to me because I had such an aversion to enemas. I thought that was horrifying, but the truth is this is a great humble therapy that you can do in your home to yourself. And there's a right way to do it. And, then there are less effective ways to do it. But this is so much better to chip away at these, chronic issues with strategies that are actually very accessible to you rather than we inherit people all the time. And I'm sure you do too, given your fame and your reach that are spending $10,000, $20,000 on trips to Mexico for stem cells and things like that. The humble enema bucket will get you so far. I promise. So let's get excited about this. I know it sounds gross, but bile sounds gross, and we got over that one. So let's unpack this a bit. So there are things that you can do. You mentioned enemas, detoxes, and flushes, right? So detox let's define what that means and how the other two fit into them. Detox is not like a gimmicky product that you're seeing on TikTok or Instagram. Real detox is what your body is already doing, which is really intelligent scooping up of environmental toxicants and normal metabolic waste and reconstituting that in the liver into very broken down metabolites. And then your liver decides, is it going out through the bowels, through the bile, or is it going out through the kidneys and the urinary system? right? And so this is what like the actual detox is. Your body's always doing it. And yes, we might need a little bit of support when we say, let's do a detox. We're not talking about a weekend cleanse, or we're trying to like temporarily silence symptoms by very temporarily removing irritants and then going back to normal life. Cleanses are a great maintenance for people who are already healthy. Like, oh, let's just reset. Let's just take a break from alcohol for the week. Let's take a break from sugar. Let's eat very simple foods. Let's be gentle on the body. Let's meditate. Let's sleep. Like, that's a cleanse. What we're talking about with detox is a program that you may need to work for several months, depending on how overloaded your body is. And all we're doing is helping the body to catch up on the backlog. So if you have like a bucket, many of us use like the bucket metaphor, right? Of like what your body's capacity is. And you've been filling it up with environmental toxicants for decades, right? Starting with maternal fetal toxin transfer in the womb. A lot of symptom regulation is about making sure that toxin bucket doesn't overflow at the top, because that's when the symptoms really flare. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of protocols waste a lot of time on. What we want with a long-term strategic detox is to completely lower that down so that you have a lot of resilience for whatever life, may throw at you. That's the whole point,
Buffer
right?
room, right?
Resilient. Yeah, exactly. A buffer, exactly. So that's what real detox is. So where do flushes and enemas fit into that? Enemas can be a great strategy within a detox. So you can do them, as little as once a week. Some people choose to do them 2 or 3 times a week. Some people who work with us who have really intense, overgrowth and infestations of parasites where they're like measuring their progress every day by feet of worms that they get out, they really benefit from a daily enema for a short period of time just to support the body and excretion, because it does take so much effort for the body to get those out. But this is not supposed to be something that replaces bowel movements. And it's not something that you can get addicted to. It really isn't. I think there's a little bit of, drama on the web somewhere about that. But if you are supporting your body with a real detox where you have drainage support, mitochondrial support, you're also supporting with the correct binders, and you're also supporting with, bile builders and bile movers, you don't get addicted to enemas because you're moving the body through this period of time where enemas would be supportive. And then it's like, just a tool you can call on when you need it later. So what do you put in an enema is the question. Well, you could certainly do a water enema that's going to help with a mechanical release from the colon. And for those of you who have really persistent, bowel dysfunction, that can be a great relief. One thing that actually works much better is the coffee enema. And I know I was so skeptical. I thought this sounded so dumb. It's like, I will never do one of those. I was totally horrified when I found out my partner, Michael, was doing one. And then he convinced me to do it. Just do it once a day for 2 weeks. And, it'll really get you to a new place. Fine. I'm going to prove you wrong about this. So I gear up my courage and do it. And actually, it was a huge relief, because an enema with anything in it is going to have, whether it's water or coffee, let me be more specific, is going to encourage that vagal nerve to actually have a strong response. And you can go back into the parasympathetic dominant state because you're distending the colon with water. And that's what, it stimulates the vagus nerve. Ooh, okay. So we're dropping out of that sympathetic dominant fight or flight or even freeze mode and getting back into the body's ability to rest, digest, detox, and drain, which we must be able to enter every day for long periods of time.
Many of us don't. Many of us are just go, go, go.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, John. For so many of us, especially who are in Western culture, we've been trained away from this. Like, that's not productive. That's not responding to life. You need to be more type A. And for those of us who have struggled with chronic illness for quite some time, it can be very difficult to reclaim the ability to be in the parasympathetic dominant state. So this alone is a great humble way to reclaim a parasympathetic dominant response. And it's something you can count on. It's why people who grow comfort with enemas use them to support a body-wide anti-inflammatory response. Oh, you got a backache? Do a coffee enema. You have a drainage headache? Oh, I need more drainage support. Do a coffee enema. It's not to say that the first few enemas are going to be so fun, because they won't be. They'll be weird. You're going to be like, what am I doing? And then your body's going to be like, what are you doing to me? I want this stuff out. And that's fine. That's great. Just grow comfort with it, in, out, in, out. And then over time, we're going to work up to, cycles of 3 minutes. So 3 minutes means that your liver is getting stimulation from those palmitic acid crystals in the coffee extract itself. There's actually a shortcut from the colon right to the liver through this beautiful vein. And that's how you're getting this information to the liver. I'm like, hey, do you want some support? Do you want to let go of some old bile? Did you know it's time to make glutathione? That's what the palmitic acid crystals are saying to the liver from coffee, if the coffee is prepared correctly. So then you get this boost of glutathione production for up to 700% for several hours, which is great because you need glutathione for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of liver detox. So that's why it's supportive for detox as well as drainage. You're getting the mechanical clean out, you're getting that body-wide anti-inflammatory parasympathetic dominant response, and you're also getting some liver support to move out old bile and make new glutathione.
Yeah. Is there anyone that shouldn't be doing an enema? It sounds awesome. Yeah, it certainly sounds awesome for the majority of us. But are there any individuals that should be careful with it?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's such a great question. Yes. So we don't like women who are pregnant or breastfeeding to start detox at all. And we do not recommend coffee enemas or even enemas when pregnant, water enemas, because we don't want to be pushing the river. We want you to be focusing, your body to be focusing on building a healthy baby, building healthy breast milk. And there is already, unfortunately, some toxic mobilization within that process. We don't want to push that any faster. We have to keep baby safe and mama safe. So that's thing one. And then there's also, times where you really want to work with your practitioner. So we have had people come through our practice who had diverticulitis or hemorrhoids who actually used enemas to resolve those issues. But it really requires listening to the body and working with your practitioner. So I would say in general, that's a no, unless you're working with a practitioner. And, basic things like that.
Helpful. Yeah, thank you. And I think I cut you off there earlier, but, another question I've got is this Herx. Now, people, inevitably, you can still be so prepared and do everything right, but there's still going to be somebody that has a Herxheimer reaction. When that happens, what do you recommend to people to help resolve it?
That's such a great question. So let's look at how we get to a Herxheimer reaction, how it's built to answer that. So a Herxheimer, we can create one at will if we ask the body to detox. We push on detox without enough drainage support and without enough energy support. That's how you make a Herxheimer reaction. So then you reverse engineer them. What does the body need when you create a Herxheimer reaction? The body needs to slow down. So you can, for detox strategies that you're on, say supplements, you can reduce the dose by half until you grow comfort with that pace that you're moving at. For example, in every group course that we do, we have 3 different lanes of intensity because we inherit, as I'm sure you do, ultra sensitive people that have chronic conditions, digestively, and you have to ease in, and that's okay. You can still make progress. You have to listen to your body though. And then we have the slow and steady lane, and then we have the deep healing lane. We designed the gentle healing lane for the ultra sensitives for me because I crashed so easily. And then Michael was all the way at the other end, like, oh, I wonder what this does. I'll take the whole bottle if it says take 2. So and it really is about listening to the pace of your body. So the first step is slow down. You're not going to win any awards by going too fast for the body. Doesn't mean you can't make progress. And then also consider your foundational support. So do you have any digestive repair elements on board that can help soothe the process and have some easy wins for the body? Like MAP Aminos is a great product for that because it will reseal the gut lining. There's a lot of research behind that. Your body doesn't have to have any digestive absorptive capabilities in order to use them. They're completely absorbed in the bloodstream within 23 minutes. So do you also have mitochondrial support on board? Some people like BCATP from Cellcore. That's not my favorite, honestly. I like Energy by Bioimmersion. That's a really great just mitochondrial food because we don't want to ask the body to add to its to-do list with drainage and detox if your mitochondria can't make enough energy for you to do the work. So that's another great way to help avoid herxes or help recover from them. Just make sure you have enough energy in the system. Are you hydrating? Is it really high quality water? Did you forget to track your bowel movements? Are you not moving at least once a day? Are you moving once a day, but it feels incomplete? If so, it's time to slow down on detox and just focus on bowel support. And, please use non-habit forming things for that. There's a lot of them on the market. So,
Sinclair, you are dropping fire here today. I love it. Are there any other tips and tools that you want to share with everyone today, just about general detox tips, things that we can help our gut liver access?
I think the number one principle to remember is that your body is absolutely brilliant. And like John and I have been saying this entire time, we want to work with the body. We're never going to override it or outsmart it. So how does the body like to do things? And where did it get stuck along the way? That's the investigation process. Healing from chronic gut conditions is not mysterious, guys. I know that you're here because, like me, once you have spent time listening to practitioners that were at the edge of their understanding, they may have led you astray unknowingly. It doesn't mean they didn't mean well, but there's a lot of different health paradigms out there right now, and it takes a long time for new data to trickle down into the mainstream of general practice. So you may have wasted a little time. That's okay. That's normal. It's okay to have trial and error. It doesn't mean you're too complicated to heal. Healing is not mysterious. It's just a little more complex in today's day and age, but we can absolutely do this. So my number one recommendation is to listen to your body and start to learn what the signals mean. Often we have a short-term healing reaction as we actually support detox and drainage, because the body's strategies for flushing out toxins and pathogens are not fun to experience. It's like a fever. You don't want to suppress the fever, because then the fever never gets a chance to break, doesn't get to build and break and help the body flush out. Similarly, if you get a rash as you're detoxing, you need to start to learn, is that a rash because I'm irritating the body, or is it a rash because I'm finally giving the body what it needs? I might just be going a little too fast. So these are some distinctions, and you get to be the CEO of your own health and figure that out. As much as John and I are here to support you, there's no practitioner can be the CEO of your own health. You've got to do that for you. So that's the exciting thing, because you're here at the summit. So it means you already know that. So I'm excited for you guys.
Sinclair, that is so well said. I think that is exactly where we're going to leave it today. But listen, for anyone listening right now who wants to learn more about you, where can we find you online?
Oh, thank you. So I'm the host of Your Health Reset podcast. We're also on Instagram, Detox Rejuvenation, and you can find us at detoxrejuvenation.com. That's where all of our free fun stuff is. So, we'd love to support you on your journey.
Well, thanks again, Sinclair. This has been really informative and entertaining. I love the analogies, by the way. But thanks again for being on the Gut Reset Summit, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you so much for being an advocate in this space, John. Your work is so important.
You're very welcome. Thank you.